Made for Each Other by Amjad. This is a story of two people who were close for years, but didn't even realize that they were made for each other. Let's begin story. Nina and Ryan were classmates in school. They were not just classmates, they were best friends. They used to laugh together, study together, eat together. They shared everything. But there was no love between them. Not that romantic kind of love. They just loved each other's company. They were very close, but they never felt those love feelings. They completed their school, then college, and finally they finished their studies. Now it was time to move on in life. Nina went back to her hometown. Her father owned a big business in the main city. She started helping him. City life was fast and busy. So busy that Nina forgot to stay in touch with old friends. Work became her world. From office to home, and then again from home to office. She didn't even think about marriage. Her father asked her many times, but she always avoided the topic. On the other hand, Ryan was not so lucky. Even though he was a smart student, he was struggling to find a good job. He tried many times, sent many applications. Finally, one day, he got a call. It was an interview call from a company in the main city. He had to travel there for a face-to-face round. Ryan packed his small bag and left for the city with hope in his heart and only little money in his pocket. But fate had something different planned. And that's how the story begins. Ryan reached the city with hope in his heart. He had little money, only enough for basic things like food and transport. He kept thinking about the job interview. He told himself, "This time, I have to get the job." It was not easy for him to leave his town and come to this big, fast city. But he had no other choice. He needed a job. He needed money. And most of all, he needed to make his life better. The day he reached the city, something unexpected happened. It was morning. Ryan got down from the train, took a cab, and was going to the place where he had to stay. He was crossing the road to buy a bottle of water when he suddenly heard a loud sound. A car had hit something. People on the road started running towards the car. Ryan looked up and saw that the car had crashed into a street pole. Smoke was coming out. Without thinking, Ryan ran towards the car to help. When he reached the car, he saw a woman inside. She was hurt. Her head was bleeding. She was unconscious. Ryan shouted for help, but no one was coming near. Some people were just watching. Ryan opened the door and pulled the woman out. He stopped a taxi and rushed her to the nearest hospital. He didn't know who she was. He only knew that she needed help. At the hospital, the doctors said she had lost a lot of blood. They needed blood immediately. The nurse asked, "Are you her family?" Ryan said no, but he didn't want to leave her like that. So he gave his own blood to save her life. The hospital staff asked for his name, phone number, and address. He gave his details and waited outside the emergency room. After a while, the doctor said, "She is stable now. She will be fine." Ryan felt relief. He looked at the time. He was late. His interview was in another part of the city. He had very little money left because the cab driver had taken most of it. He didn't even argue. He just ran out of the hospital, hoping to reach the company in time. But when he reached the office, the interview was already over. The receptionist told him, "You are late. The interviews are done. We selected someone else." Ryan tried to explain. He said, "Please listen to me. I was helping someone who met with an accident." But no one listened. They just said, "We are sorry." Ryan walked out of the office feeling sad and tired. He had helped someone. He had done the right thing. But still, he was left with nothing. No job. No money. Not even food. He thought to himself, "Maybe I should go back. Maybe this city is not for me." At the hospital, the girl he had saved woke up. It was Nina. She asked the nurse, "Who brought me here?" The nurse said, "A man. He saved your life. He even donated blood." Nina wanted to meet him and thank him. She asked for the register. She saw the name Ryan written with a phone number. Her heart stopped for a moment. She said slowly, "Ryan? Could it be that Ryan?" She picked up her phone and called the number. But the call didn't connect. Ryan's phone was not working because he had no money to recharge it. Nina felt something strange in her heart. She wanted to find this person. She didn't know where he was, but she remembered the name. Ryan. Meanwhile, Ryan went to the room he had rented. The landlord asked for the rent. Ryan had no money. He said, "Please give me a few days. I will try to find a job." The landlord said, "Okay, but not more than a week." Ryan knew his time was running out. He still had some interviews lined up. He thought, "I will try 2 or 3 more places. If nothing happens, I will go back to my town." He had no other option. In the next few days, he went to different offices. He gave interviews, but no one selected him. Finally, he had one last interview left. He said to himself, "This is my last chance. After this, I will leave." What he didn't know was, this last interview was going to change everything. Ryan woke up early on the day of his last interview. He had not eaten anything properly the day before. He was tired, weak, and his clothes were not looking fresh. He didn't feel confident. He looked at himself in the mirror and thought, "Do I really have a chance?" For a moment, he felt like skipping the interview. He even thought about going straight to the railway station and catching a train back to his town. He had just enough money left for a train ticket. He sat on the edge of his bed and looked at the bag he had packed. He had already made up his mind to leave the city, but something inside him said, "Give it one more try." So he got up, washed his face, combed his hair, and wore the best shirt he had. It was not ironed, but it was clean. He took his file of certificates and left for the interview. The company's office was in a tall glass building. Ryan entered the building and told the receptionist that he had come for the interview. The receptionist told him to wait. While Ryan was waiting, he looked around. The office was modern. People were busy with their work. Everyone looked smart and professional. Ryan felt a little nervous. After a while, the HR manager came and took him to the interview room. The HR looked at Ryan's resume. She asked him a few questions about his education, his skills, and his experience. Ryan answered honestly. He told her he had no work experience, but he was a quick learner and had done well in his studies. The HR was impressed. She could see that Ryan was not just intelligent, but also honest and humble. Then the HR asked him, "Why do you want this job?" Ryan took a deep breath. He told his story. He said, "I came to this city with hope. I got a call for an interview. On the day I arrived, I saw an accident. A woman was hurt. People were just watching, but I helped her. I took her to the hospital. She had lost a lot of blood, so I gave her mine. Because of that, I was late for my interview, and I lost that job." The HR looked surprised. Ryan continued, "I have no money. I'm staying in a rented room, and I can't even pay the rent. I didn't want to come today. I was about to leave the city, but I thought I should try one last time. That's why I'm here." The HR was silent for a moment. She then said, "Please wait outside. I'll talk to the company owner. You'll have to give one more round of interview." Ryan stepped out of the room and sat in the waiting area. He didn't know what to expect. The HR went to the owner's cabin. The owner of the company was Nina. The HR said, "Ma'am, there's a candidate you should meet. He has no experience, but he's very talented. Also, he has a story I think you must hear." Nina asked, "What story?" The HR told her everything. About the interview he missed. About the woman he saved. About giving blood and coming late. About the struggle he was going through. Nina listened carefully. Then she asked, "What's his name?" The HR said, "Ryan." Nina's hands froze. She looked up slowly and asked, "Ryan? Are you sure?" The HR said, "Yes, ma'am. His name is Ryan." Nina stood up. Her heart was beating fast. She whispered to herself, "It's him. He's the one who saved me." She told the HR, "Call him. Right now." The HR nodded and went to get Ryan. When Ryan entered the owner's cabin, he was shocked. In front of him stood Nina. He couldn't believe his eyes. For a few seconds, he couldn't even speak. Nina looked at him with teary eyes. "Ryan, it's you." Ryan was speechless. "Nina, you are the owner of this company." She smiled, even though her eyes were full of tears. "Yes, and you're the one who saved my life." Both of them just looked at each other. So many years had passed since school, and now they had met like this. Ryan didn't know what to say. He was full of emotions. He never thought he would see Nina again, and never like this. Nina walked up to him and said, "You gave me a second chance at life. I didn't even recognize you that day. But I remember now everything." Ryan said softly, "I didn't know it was you. I just wanted to help." Nina smiled. "You're still the same, always helping others." They both sat down. They talked about their lives, their struggles, their memories from school, their journeys after school. Nina listened carefully to everything Ryan shared. She felt something in her heart, something she had never felt before. That day, something changed between them, something gentle, something real, something more than friendship. And for the first time, they both felt it. Something like love. After that emotional meeting, Nina offered Ryan a glass of water and asked him to sit comfortably. She could see he was tired. His face looked weak, and his clothes were a little worn. She asked gently, "Ryan, are you okay?" Ryan smiled and said, "Yes, just a little tired. The last few days have been difficult." Nina nodded. She wanted to say many things but didn't know where to start. There was a silence in the room, but it didn't feel awkward. It felt peaceful, as if two old souls were reconnecting after a long time. Nina broke the silence and said, "Do you remember our school days?" Ryan laughed softly. "Of course. How can I forget? You were always good at science. And I always copied your homework." Nina smiled. "And you were always drawing cartoons on your notebooks." They both laughed. In that laughter, they felt the warmth of their old friendship. For a moment, it was like they had never been apart. Then Nina became serious. "Ryan, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you had not been there that day, I might not be alive today." Ryan replied, "Nina, you don't have to thank me. I didn't do it for anything. I just saw someone in trouble and did what I could." Nina looked into his eyes and said, "That's why you're special. You didn't even know it was me, and still you helped without thinking about yourself." Ryan didn't know how to respond. He felt shy. Nina then said, "I want you to join my company, not just because you saved me, but because I believe in your talent. I saw your resume. You have good marks, and your answers in the interview were honest and clear." Ryan was surprised. You want to give me a job?" "Yes," she said. "I want you to work with me, but I will not treat you any differently. You'll have to work hard like everyone else." Ryan nodded. "That's all I ever wanted. A chance." Nina stood up and walked to her table. She picked up an envelope and gave it to Ryan. "This is your offer letter. Your job starts from Monday." Ryan took the envelope with shaky hands. It was hard for him to believe. He had come to the city with hope, lost almost everything, and now in front of him was a new beginning. Nina then said, "There's one more thing. You need a place to stay. I know how expensive this city is, so until you get your first salary, I want you to stay in the company guest house. It's nearby, and you can rest properly." Ryan hesitated. "But Nina, I don't want to take advantage." She stopped him. "You're not taking advantage. You're my employee now, and it's my responsibility to take care of my team." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. He simply said, "Thank you." Nina smiled again. "I'll ask my assistant to take you to the guest house. Take the day to rest. And tomorrow we'll have lunch together. Just like old times." Ryan left Nina's office with a heart full of emotions. He had walked into that building thinking it was his last hope. And now, everything had changed. As he stepped into the guest house later that day, he felt something new. A sense of peace. A sense of belonging. Meanwhile, Nina sat in her office, looking out of the window. Her thoughts were on Ryan. She remembered their childhood. The laughter, the school bus rides, the classroom jokes. She had missed him without even knowing it. She had been so busy with life, with her work, with building her father's company, that she had forgotten what true friendship felt like. And now, when she saw Ryan again, it felt like her heart had found something it had been searching for. It was not just about the accident. It was something deeper, something more real, something that had always been there, hidden in the corners of their hearts. The next day, Nina was waiting for Ryan in the company cafeteria. She had asked the cook to make Ryan's favorite meal from school days, simple food, but filled with memories. When Ryan walked in, he saw her already seated, waiting for him with a smile, as they sat across from each other, sharing food, laughter, and stories. Something unspoken began to grow between them. Not just friendship anymore. Something more. Something gentle. Something close to love. The next few weeks passed peacefully for both Nina and Ryan. Ryan had joined the company and was working hard every day. He came to the office early, completed all his tasks with care, and stayed back late if needed. The team liked him. He was polite, helpful, and always ready to learn. Nina watched him from a distance. She saw how sincere and dedicated he was. It made her happy that she had trusted her decision to hire him. One day, the company had a team meeting. Nina was leading it and Ryan was attending it for the first time. When Nina entered the meeting room, everyone stood up. She nodded with a smile and began the session. She talked about company goals, upcoming projects, and future plans. While speaking, her eyes met Ryan's for a second. He smiled. She smiled back. No one else noticed, but in that small exchange, there was something special. After the meeting, Nina asked Ryan to stay back for a few minutes. When everyone else left, she said, "Ryan, I want to give you more responsibility. There's a new project starting next week. I think you can handle it, Ryan was surprised but happy. "I will do my best," he said. Nina replied, "I know you will." She handed him a file and asked him to study it. It was a big task, but Ryan felt ready. After that day, they started spending more time together, sometimes for work, sometimes just to talk. They had coffee breaks together. They walked around the office garden during lunch. They shared jokes, childhood memories, and little stories from their lives. Ryan once said, "This city felt cold when I arrived, but now it feels like home." Nina smiled and said, "Sometimes people make a place feel warm." One evening, after work, it started raining heavily. Ryan had forgotten to bring his umbrella. Nina saw him standing near the office gate, waiting for the rain to stop. She stopped her car and called out to him, "Ryan, get in. I'll drop you." He hesitated. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Yes. It's raining hard." "Don't wait." He sat beside her, and they drove quietly through the rain. The roads were slow, traffic was heavy, but they didn't mind. The silence between them felt calm. They didn't speak much, but inside, both were feeling something new, a kind of comfort that only comes when two hearts understand each other. Nina stopped the car near the guest house. Ryan thanked her and was about to open the door when she said, "Ryan, I'm glad we met again." He looked at her, eyes filled with emotion. "Me too, Nina. I didn't know how much I missed you until I saw you again." She nodded, and he got out of the car. As she drove away, she kept thinking about his words. Something inside her was changing. Slowly, she was feeling a connection that went beyond old friendship. At the same time, Ryan sat in his room and looked outside the window. The rain was still falling. He thought about Nina, how strong she was, how kind, how she had grown from that simple schoolgirl into a confident leader. He respected her, admired her, but more than that, he was beginning to care for her deeply. The next few days were busy. The new project had started, and Ryan was leading a small team. He worked with focus and stayed professional. Nina supported him but gave him space to grow. She didn't show special treatment. She wanted him to earn every step on his own. One night, after a long day, Nina sat in her room, looking at an old photo album. There was a photo from school. She and Ryan, sitting on a bench, smiling. She touched the picture gently and whispered, "You were always there, but I never saw it. Maybe we were made for each other." At the same time, Ryan was writing in his diary. He wrote, "She's the same Nina, and yet she's not. She's stronger now, but still carries the same heart. I don't know what this feeling is, but it's new and real." Both of them were slowly falling for each other, but they hadn't said it out loud. Not yet. They were careful, quiet, and unsure. Was it love, or just the memory of an old friendship returning? They didn't know the answer yet. But something was blooming between them, slowly, gently, like the first light of morning. Ryan's days were now filled with purpose. Every morning, he woke up with a sense of excitement. He had a reason to smile. He had a job that challenged him, and he had a friend in Nina. But deep down, Ryan knew this was no longer just friendship. His heart was changing. Every time Nina walked past him, every time her voice called his name, something moved inside him. But he said nothing. He was scared. Scared to lose what he already had. He was just a new employee, and she was the owner. What if she didn't feel the same? Nina, on the other hand, had her own thoughts. She often found herself thinking about Ryan, even when he wasn't around. At meetings, at home, in quiet moments, his name stayed in her mind. She respected him, admired how hard he worked, and how simple and kind he was, but she was confused. This feeling was not something she had expected. She had never thought of love this way. Her life had always been about business, about responsibility. But now, her heart was waking up to something softer, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. One weekend, the company planned a small team outing. It was a one-day trip to a nearby hill station. Nina didn't usually join such events, but this time, she decided to go. Maybe she needed a break too. When Ryan saw her arrive at the picnic spot, he was surprised. She was dressed casually, smiling more freely than usual. For a moment, she didn't look like the owner of a company. She looked like the Nina he had known back in school. They all played games, shared lunch, laughed together. For the first time, Ryan saw Nina relax. She wasn't holding her phone, wasn't checking emails. She was just enjoying the moment. In the afternoon, Ryan and Nina walked a little away from the group, towards a quiet spot near a small stream. The sound of flowing water was peaceful. Ryan said softly, "I didn't think you'd come." She smiled. "I didn't think I would either, but I needed this." He looked at her and said, "You work too much." She laughed. "Someone has to keep the company running." Ryan said, "True, but someone also has to remind you to live a little." There was a pause, a gentle silence. Nina looked at him and asked, "Do you ever think about school days?" He nodded. "All the time." "Do you miss it?" she asked. "Only the part where we were together," he replied. She looked into his eyes. The air between them felt still. Something was about to change. Something they had both been hiding for too long. That evening, while returning, Nina sat quietly in her car. Her heart was full of questions. Was this just comfort, or was it really love? And if it was love, what should she do? Should she tell him? Would it affect their work, their friendship? Meanwhile, Ryan was lying in his room, looking at the ceiling. He replayed their conversation near the stream again and again in his head. He knew now. He was in love with Nina, but he also knew his place. He was not rich, not powerful, just a man trying to build his life. What if she didn't feel the same? What if she thought he was taking advantage of their old bond? Days passed. They returned to their routine. But something was different. They spoke a little more now. Their eyes searched for each other in the crowd. A small smile, a short chat in the corridor, a shared coffee. Each moment felt deeper than before. Then came Nina's birthday. Ryan didn't know what to get her. He didn't have much money, and he didn't want to give her something too simple. So he decided to make something himself. He remembered that Nina loved to write in school. So he bought a simple notebook, covered it neatly, and wrote a message on the first page. To the one who taught me strength without words and kindness without reason. He gave it to her quietly at the end of the day when everyone had left. She opened it later, in her room. When she read the line, she felt her eyes fill with tears. It was simple, but it touched her heart. She held the notebook close to her chest. No one had ever given her something so thoughtful. That night, Nina sat on her balcony, under the stars. Her heart was no longer silent. She was in love. It was clear now. And so was her decision. She would not hide it anymore. But she didn't know how to say it. She was strong in business, but when it came to love, she felt shy, unsure. And Ryan, in his room, was writing in his diary again. He wrote, "Sometimes, love hides in the small things. A smile, a shared silence, a notebook. I don't know what will happen next, but I know what I feel is real." Love was growing between them. It was slow, deep, and honest. But neither of them had spoken it yet. They were both waiting for the right moment. But life has its own plans. And very soon that moment would arrive. The days after Nina's birthday were filled with quiet changes. Ryan noticed how Nina's behavior had softened. She smiled more when she saw him. Sometimes, she would ask him to join her for lunch in the office canteen, something she never used to do before. Their talks became longer, not just about work but also about life, dreams, and memories. Ryan still held his feelings inside. He didn't want to rush. He thought maybe Nina was just being kind. Maybe she was thankful that he had helped her at the hospital. He didn't want to mistake her kindness for love. But deep in his heart, he wished it was more than that. Nina, too, felt the change. She looked forward to meeting Ryan every day. When he wasn't around, she felt something was missing. One evening, while going through some files, she saw Ryan's resume again. She read it carefully this time. It was full of achievements, good grades, and awards. She thought about how much he had struggled, how he almost missed his interview because of her accident, how he had still managed to show up even after losing the job that day. She felt proud of him. And something else too. She felt lucky. Lucky that fate had brought him back into her life. One Friday, the company organized a cultural evening for employees. Everyone was asked to participate. Ryan was not very comfortable with such events, but his teammates pushed him to join. They formed a small group to perform a short play. During the practice sessions, Nina would often come to watch. She enjoyed seeing her employees relaxed and having fun. Ryan's team decided to do a play about friendship and fate. When the play began, the hall was full. Employees clapped and laughed as the actors performed. But there was one scene that touched everyone deeply. In that scene, a man meets his old school friend by chance, and that one meeting changes his life. Nina watched that scene with full attention. She saw Ryan's expressions, the way he said his lines, and the emotions in his voice. Something inside her stirred. She felt as if he was not just acting. He was telling their story, their real story. After the event, she met him backstage. She looked at him for a moment and then said, "You were wonderful on stage." Ryan smiled. "Thank you. I didn't think I could act, but it was fun." There was a silence between them, a meaningful silence. Then Nina asked, "Was that scene written by you?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, I just wrote what I felt." She looked into his eyes. Her heart was beating fast. She wanted to say something, but words were not coming out. Finally, she said, "It felt real." Ryan replied, "Because it was." That night, Nina couldn't sleep. Her heart was full. She remembered his words, because it was real. Was he trying to say something more? Was it a message? Meanwhile, Ryan sat by his window, thinking. He felt a bit lighter now, like he had finally shared something from his heart, even if not directly. A few days later, Nina made a decision. She invited Ryan for coffee at a nearby cafe. Just the two of them. It was a quiet place, with soft music and warm lights. Ryan was surprised but happy. He wore his best shirt and came on time. They sat across from each other. For a moment they didn't speak. They just looked at each other. Then Nina took a deep breath and said, "Ryan, I want to thank you. Not just for what you did at the hospital, but for coming into my life again." Ryan smiled gently. "I think we were meant to meet again." She nodded, "Yes, and I think I was too busy to notice what really matters." He asked softly, "And what matters now?" She looked into his eyes and said, "You do." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe what he just heard. He replied, "I was waiting to hear that for a long time." There was silence again, but this time it was full of meaning. No more guessing. No more doubts. They both knew now. They were not just old friends. They were two hearts that had finally found their way to each other. Their love had no fancy start, no big declarations. It had grown slowly, from friendship, from care, from memories and moments. And now it had finally found its voice. Simple, honest, and true. After that evening at the cafe, everything between Nina and Ryan began to change quietly, but beautifully. They didn't tell anyone at the office about their feelings. Not yet. But their bond became stronger. They started spending more time together, talking about life, their past, and their future. Sometimes they would walk together after office hours, just talking and laughing. It was simple, but it felt special. Ryan, who once felt lost in the city, now felt like he belonged. He had a good job, a stable routine, and now something even more important: love. But even with all the happiness, he still remembered the struggles he faced. Sometimes those thoughts came back. How he almost gave up. How he was ready to leave the city just before that final interview. He often thought, what if he had not gone to that last interview? What if he had taken the train and left? Life would have been so different. Nina too thought about the same thing. She had almost forgotten about love. She was so busy in work, in running her father's company, that she had closed the door to emotions. But meeting Ryan again reminded her of the softness inside her. It reminded her that success and business were important, but not everything. A person also needs connection, understanding, and someone to share their life with. One day, Nina's father noticed something. He saw how happy Nina had become. She was smiling more, talking more freely, and looked more peaceful. As a father, he was happy, but he was also curious. So one evening, he asked Nina about it. He said, "You look different these days. Happier. Is there someone special?" Nina smiled but didn't answer directly. She said, "Maybe." Her father didn't ask more. He trusted her. He had always believed that Nina would make the right choices. A few days later, the company planned a weekend trip for its senior staff. It was a 2-day retreat outside the city, near a lake. Nina asked Ryan if he would like to join. He agreed. It was his first time going on a trip with the office, and more than that, it was a chance to spend time with Nina away from work. The place was calm, green, and beautiful. The air was fresh, and the lake water was clear. Everyone was relaxed, away from the stress of the city. There were team games, group dinners, and long walks. On the second evening, Nina and Ryan went for a walk near the lake. It was quiet, and the sun was setting. Nina picked up a small stone and threw it into the water. She said, "Do you remember our school days? How we used to talk for hours without any reason?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, those were the best days." She looked at the water and said, "I feel the same comfort when I talk to you now. Nothing has changed." Ryan replied, "But one thing has changed." She looked at him. "What?" He said, "Back then, I didn't know what love was. Now I do." Nina turned to him. Her eyes were full of emotion. She didn't say anything. She just looked at him. And in that silence, she said everything. Ryan slowly took her hand in his. It felt natural, as if it was meant to happen. He said, "I don't have a big house or a car. I don't have a rich background. But I have something that's only yours. My heart." Nina's eyes filled with tears. Happy tears. She said, "And I don't need anything else." That evening, they sat together near the lake, watching the stars appear in the sky. They didn't need words anymore. They had waited years for this moment. From being school friends to growing apart, and finally finding each other again, they had been through everything. But now they knew for sure. They were made for each other. After that lakeside evening, Nina and Ryan's bond grew even deeper. Their hearts had already spoken to each other, and now they were slowly building their life around that new understanding. They started meeting outside work more often. Sometimes it was just a quiet dinner, sometimes a walk in the park. They didn't need fancy dates. They just enjoyed being with each other. Ryan was doing well in the office too. His work was honest, his attitude was humble, and his ideas were fresh. Even the senior managers started noticing that he was not just a kind-hearted person, but also smart and reliable. Nina made sure that nobody in the company gave him special treatment. She wanted him to grow on his own merit, and Ryan respected that. He never wanted things to be easy just because he was close to the owner. But one day, a challenge came. A rumor started spreading in the office. Some people began saying that Ryan was getting promotions and chances because he was close to Nina. It hurt Ryan deeply. He had worked so hard, stayed up late so many nights, and gave everything to prove himself. But now people were questioning his success. When Ryan heard about this, he didn't say anything to Nina. He didn't want her to feel guilty or uncomfortable. But Nina found out. She was angry, not at Ryan, but at the people who were gossiping. Still, she handled the matter in a calm and professional way. She called a staff meeting, without taking names, and said clearly, "In this company, we value hard work and honesty. Anyone who cannot respect their fellow team members' efforts is free to walk away. We don't entertain jealousy or baseless talks here." After that meeting, people stopped talking. They realized Nina wasn't just the owner. She was a leader who stood for fairness. But the incident had left a small crack in Ryan's heart. One evening, when they were sitting at a quiet tea shop, he looked at Nina and said, "I love you, Nina. I always will. But I don't want to be the reason for your image getting damaged. If being close to me is causing problems, maybe I should step back." Nina was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Do you really think I've come this far in life to care about what people say? I run a company. I face challenges every day. Do you think I can't face a few words from a few insecure people?" Ryan looked at her. Her eyes were steady, full of confidence and care. She continued, "You're not just anyone in my life, Ryan. You're the reason I smile again. I won't let anyone take that away from me." That evening, Ryan realized something. Love is not just about sharing good times. It's also about standing strong together when the world doubts you. And Nina had done that. She didn't protect him by hiding him from the world. She stood next to him, strong and proud. Days passed, and things returned to normal. Ryan got his next promotion not because of Nina, but because of the results he delivered. The company started a new project, and Ryan was made the lead manager for it. He worked day and night, and his team succeeded beyond expectations. The board members appreciated his effort, and one of them even said, "He's one of the best hires we've had in years." Nina was proud, but she stayed silent during the appreciation. She didn't want to mix their personal life with office matters. And that's what Ryan loved about her the most. Her balance, her strength, her clarity. By now, both of them knew one thing. They were not in a hurry to get married or make big announcements. They had already found something greater than that, a deep, unshakable connection. They trusted each other, they supported each other, and they respected each other's space. But something unexpected was coming. A turn in their journey that neither of them had planned. It was going to test their bond in a new way. It would either bring them even closer or take them apart. But one thing was sure. Their story was not going to be ordinary. It had never been. One evening, when things were finally going smooth, something happened that changed everything. Nina's father fell seriously ill. He had been hiding his health issues for a long time, but now the illness became worse, and he had to be taken to the hospital immediately. Nina was shocked. Her father had always been strong, always present for her. Seeing him like that made her feel weak for the first time in years. Doctors said he would need a long treatment and might not recover fully. He could not manage the business anymore. Nina had already taken over most of the work, but now she had to handle everything on her own, without any guidance. She tried her best, but the pressure grew. She had to run the company, take care of her father, manage the staff, attend board meetings, and still hold herself together. During this time, Ryan stayed by her side like a rock. He helped with the company work, stayed late in the office, and even helped Nina's father with hospital visits. He never asked for anything in return. He just wanted to see Nina okay. But Nina was not okay. She started getting frustrated. Not at Ryan, but at life. She felt trapped between her duties and her emotions. One night, after a very long day, she sat with Ryan and said, "I feel like I'm losing everything. My strength, my peace, even us." Ryan held her hand and said, "Then let me carry some of it for you. You don't have to do everything alone. We're a team, Nina. We always have been." But Nina stayed quiet. Her silence was not because of doubt in Ryan. It was because of fear. Fear of losing someone again. Fear of hurting him. So she made a decision that shocked Ryan. She asked him to take a break from her. She said, "You have done enough for me. Maybe you should go live your dreams. You have your whole life ahead. I don't want to stop you." Ryan couldn't believe it. He felt like someone had pulled the ground from under his feet. "Are you asking me to leave?" he asked. She replied softly, "I'm asking you to live freely, without carrying my weight." Ryan was heartbroken. He didn't say anything. He just left. Weeks passed. Nina threw herself into her work. She was trying to be strong, but deep inside, She missed him every moment. Ryan, on the other hand, had returned to his town. He had no plans anymore, no goals. His heart was still with Nina, and he couldn't focus on anything else. Then one day, Nina's father called her. He said, "You've grown strong, my daughter, but strength does not mean pushing people away. Ryan was not your weakness. He was your support. Don't lose someone who stood beside you in every storm." That night, Nina cried for the first time in many weeks. She realized how wrong she was. In her fear of becoming a burden, she had pushed away the only person who truly loved her. The next day, she flew to Ryan's town. She didn't call him. She went straight to his house. When Ryan opened the door and saw her, he couldn't speak. She said, "I was wrong. You were right. We are a team. I need you, not because I am weak, but because we are stronger together." Ryan looked at her for a long time, then smiled and said, "I was waiting for you." They hugged, and in that moment, everything felt right again. They returned to the city together. Nina's father slowly recovered. Ryan officially became a part of the leadership team in the company. And months later, Nina and Ryan got married. Not in a big ceremony, but in a small gathering with close friends and family. Their story was never about sudden love or dramatic romance. It was about growing together, falling apart, learning, and then finding the way back to each other. They were truly made for each other. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.